Good afternoon, everyone, and thank you for joining us here today for SABOR's Public Utilities Town Hall. Today, we're joined with Rudy Garza, Chief Customer Engagement Officer with CPS Energy, and Robert Puente, CEO of SAWS. Rudy Garza joined CPS Energy, the nation's largest municipally owned electricity and gas utility, in 2012, and is currently responsible for customer success, community engagement, corporate responsibility, managed accounts, corporate communications, marketing, and smart city initiatives. And Robert Puente was appointed San Antonio Water Systems President CEO in May of 2008. As chief executive of one of the nation's largest utilities, he provides leadership in delivering water and wastewater services to more than 1.7 million consumers, developing new water resources, continuing infrastructure upgrades throughout the community, and building regional partnerships. The focus of today's discussion will revolve around how the public utilities are adjusting to the challenges brought about by the pandemic, as well as customer rate affordability, housing, and the petition drive. So thank you both for being with us today. We greatly appreciate it. Wanted to start off with the COVID pandemic has brought about a lot of unique challenges and has required our community and its public utilities to make necessary adjustments. CPS Energy and SAWS employ thousands of people who are also having to deal with this pandemic and balancing the work from home dynamic while still trying to deliver energy and water to its customers. What energy protocols, plans have been put in place for these unprecedented times? So starting off with CPS, how has CPS Energy responded to this pandemic?
Well, Gilbert, first off, thank you for having us today with SABOR. Normally, Paula Gold-Williams, our president and CEO, would be here. She was off on vacation this week, so she asked me to step in, and I will do the best I can in her stead. I think you'll find that your utility companies, whether it's CPS or SAWS, both reacted, I think, really quickly to the pandemic environment. We were really the first ones in, and we'll be the last ones out in terms of our protocols for keeping our employees healthy. We're essential service, and so we're gonna probably be more cautious than most when it comes to the protocols that we put in place. We immediately created teams, orange, white, and blue teams, some of which remained in the office, many of which work from home, and some which do both. And so by doing that, we immediately physically distanced our workforce to create separation and increase our safety protocols. But we've done a number of other things. We immediately turned to suspending disconnects for our customers. That was a pandemic protocol that we didn't waste any time in putting in place to ensure that we were being thoughtful about the impact to our customers as well. We have put screening protocols in place at our offices for those who have to come in to ensure that we know where they've been and what health conditions that they're in. We've created testing sites for employees who had to go get tested, so they didn't have to get in line, with the general public, and could do that safely. We've also created sequestration plans where we might have to isolate some of our employees that are operators and that run our systems on a daily basis. We haven't pulled that trigger yet, but we've got facilities in place. We've got plans in place so that if we had to take our operators and segment them to keep our power plants running and our grid going, we could do that, and we would be ready to go if the infection levels got to a certain point where we felt the need to do that. And we've got a plan that will trigger that when it happens. So we've done a lot. We continue to look at these plans every day, but Paul likes to say we were literally building a plane as it was flying.
That's pretty accurate, I think. Mr. Puente, what would you say on how you guys adapted to these changing times, sir?
Again, also thank you, Gilbert. Thank you for the opportunity to talk to your membership. And just like CPS, a lot of the things that Rudy talked about, CPS SAWS is also doing. For example, when we had 4-man crews in one truck, now it's only 2, and they're separated as much as possible. So some of the work obviously has to be done on, you cannot do it remotely. You have to get into the ditch. You have to get in there and fix the pipe. You have to get in there and connect the meter, disconnect the meter. So those kinds of things are still ongoing. At the very beginning, when this pandemic started, we were one of the first major employers in San Antonio that released its employees. And this was almost overnight. So no practice run, no opportunity to see how it really worked. And I'm really proud of our employees that were able to do it. Well, we have found out that there are some employees that do very well working from home. There's others that not so much. But this is a lesson learned. I think when things get back to normal, whenever that happens, you'll see us adopting some telecommuting principles, some ideas that we've learned in an emergency mode. So all of this is, we're using it as a learning experience. Just like CPS, we have suspended the disconnection of individuals and businesses that cannot pay their bill. This will obviously, one of the 5 things that everybody talks about, including masks and social distancing, is washing your hands, making sure that that is available for the public. I think any utility initially started doing power or water, started doing some of these things. Other utilities, I think maybe they find it more difficult to do. Others may be easier, but all in all, I do want to confirm, and hopefully your membership will tell me that they've gotten water when they wanted it and got rid of the wastewater when they wanted to. So it's been a learning process, and I think we'll be a better utility after this.
You know, Mr. Puente, we were talking a little bit about cutoff, which is an awesome thing that both entities did. What other programs has SAWS made available to individuals perhaps in need?
That was the key, is for these individuals, either 2 incomes from 2 different individuals or a sole source of income that got laid off, their hours got cut, is not to have to worry about paying that bill. So we have suspended that. But in honesty, the current programs that we had, we still have them, and they're just being utilized more. For example, we have a program for the 1 or 2 times in your lifetime that something happens out of the ordinary, a loss of job, a divorce, a medical situation, where we will help you pay your bill for that time period. We have other programs. If you're chronically underemployed or you fall below the certain levels of poverty and you just don't have the resources to get out of that, a continuous month by month discount on your bill. So that's still available. Also, we are expanding the opportunity for people to pay what they owe. The individuals that are not paying their bill, obviously that account continues to grow. And so we've reached out to them and say, at some point this is ending. So get on a payment plan. You dictate those terms. You tell us if you need 6 months, 8 months, 18 months, up to 18 months. And so those kinds of programs, I think, where we're going to try to be as flexible as possible. But the key to all this, Gilbert, is they have to contact us. They have to be responsive when we contact them. We can't just not hear anything, because if we don't hear anything, then that makes it to the next level where we probably do have to do something that's going to be harder to undo. So the communication both ways is very important. I think with that, the basic thing is that the programs that we've had, we've expanded them and we have made them, we put more money into them.
I think that's great information, because I think our members know between the landlord-tenant relationship, the most important thing is that communication going back and forth. So Rudy, for CPS, what programs have y'all made available to individuals in need?
Well, we started for the first time, and we're really proud of the effort, what we're calling our customer outreach resource effort team. And what they've done is we stood up a team, probably around 35 to 40 individuals that are customer, facing employees. And we started calling customers, and we've called over 40,000 customers between, May of this year and now. We have connected with over half, almost 60% of those customers have either taken the call or called us back. We've been able to work with our partner agencies across the community to help get them the assistance that's available, whether it be through the CARES Act funding that the city and county have managed for us, or various other agency assistance that's available. And we've actually put our customers in contact with close to $16 million so far in assistance to help offset, the loss of a job or to pay their bill down. And we have all this, Robert mentioned it as well. We've got all the programs that we normally have, our affordability discount program, our senior program, our veterans program. We've got our residential energy assistance partnership that we manage with our city and county partners that help provide direct bill assistance for folks that meet those income qualifications. So we have gotten much more proactive probably than we have ever been to try to help customers in need during this time. And of course, when you pop that bubble of having to be concerned about getting your power cut off, that certainly helps customers, not worry about, the timing associated with that. So we've continued to try to kick over every stone available in the community to find assistance for our customers.
And staying with you, Rudy, both entities are absolutely self-sustaining, and you bring in your own income. So not cutting off people or providing services without compensation has to have affected y'all financially. So 2 parts: how long do you think you'll be able to maintain that, and what does that do to your budgets moving forward?
Sure, it's had an impact. I'm not going to lie to you. We've probably seen twice as much past due balances, 30 days past due balances than we would normally see this time of year. There's probably 70,000 customers, give or take, that are in some state of stress. They're having trouble paying their bill. These are real issues that certainly create financial implications for us as well. So we feel like the proactive manner in which we've tried to attack these issues, it makes it not as bad as it otherwise could be. So we're looking at it as from a glasses half empty perspective, but certainly there's an impact.
Robert, how about for y'all? Are you concerned on how long y'all can keep this going and what that's going to do to your budget moving forward?
Well, obviously, when you don't have a defined set of revenue coming in, it does affect you. But to give you an example of the numbers we're talking about, typically on any given month, we have about 4,800 accounts that are subject to be disconnected for not paying their bill. And roughly that's about $280 that they're in arrears. Today, at the latest numbers available, it's 35,000 accounts. So from 4,800 to 35,000 accounts. So that's about a 7 times increase. And so yes, it's your question was how long? When is the foreseeable future that this may stop? Well, Gilbert, if you can tell us when the coronavirus will be subsided, I'll let you know. So that's the key, obviously. With springtime, it's a time of rejuvenation. Everybody looks forward to it, warmer weather. But it's also when the vaccine will be widely available. It's also when supposedly the warmer weather will adversely affect the virus. And so although we don't have a definite date, we do understand at some point during our calendar year, we have a January to December fiscal year, we have budgeted to start this program back up. In other words, start disconnecting people. But as any utility should do, we will have a massive amount of communication out there to the individuals and give them every opportunity to get back in good stead. A utility does not make money by disconnecting people. It's expensive to do it, and it's expensive to reconnect them because we have to physically send somebody out there. And so these kinds of programs we understand are helping people, but we need them to let us know where they are and what needs they have. So at some time in this coming year, yes, this program will be discontinued, and we have to be looking at the discontinuation of their service.
So staying with you, Robert, one of the questions from our members is, are those funds by the utilities going to be required to be paid back? So the forgiveness or the non-payment we have, is that kind of held in arrears and people are still responsible for it? Or is that just considered waive and we're starting all over every month?
Again, just like any business, at some point you realize that there's a certain amount of customers or money that you'll never collect on, and you
Got it.
write those off. So that was even before pandemic. But in this particular circumstance, we are confident that with hopefully some federal help and hopefully the economy coming back, that people will be able to start paying their bill. So these are not, in my opinion, these are not people, but for a lot of them, for the pandemic, would be current on their bill. So we firmly believe that they will pay their current bill and pay something on top of it. What that something is and for how long is what we will negotiate with them, and we will be as flexible as possible. So ideally, the situation is that we're going to collect a vast majority of the amount of arrearages, but we also understand that there'll be a certain number that people will not be able to pay, and they'll get their account through another family member, they'll move somewhere else. And so it's a business part of what we do, and we just have to use our best judgment in how we collect that money.
Rudy's the same question to you. What is going to happen with the funds that are being offered by CPS?
Sure. I mean, I think Robert covered the business side of it pretty well. I would just add, I mean, there's no magic bucket of dollars to offset, customer, to do bill forgiveness. Customers will ultimately be responsible for their bills. We're going to help them as best we can to manage through that. Absent of a CARES Act fund, infusion that, will help cover, those unpaid balances. There will be, there will be balances due that we'll just have to work through customers with. I mean, anytime, we start talking about, just bill forgiveness, there really isn't a true bill forgiveness. Other customers have to pick up whatever costs that you end up forgiving. And, so you try to be fair about, what the overall impact on your customer base is. But that being said, we are doing everything we can to help customers find resources to take care of these past due balances, so we don't get to that point where we have to worry about that. But inevitably, there will be write-offs on the other side of this that we'll have to deal with as a business.
Okay. So now, Rudy, I'm going to switch the subject a little bit. The CPS Energy launched a global flex power bundle request for proposal to bring cleaner energy to San Antonio. Can you tell us a little bit about this program?
Sure. We're really excited. The Flex Power Bundle is the generation resource aspect of our overall flexible path strategy. We know our community wants us to move to a more sustainable future going forward, and they want us to do it quickly. We are in the process. We've got an RFP on the street right now that was released on November 30th for 900 megawatts of solar capacity, which will basically triple the amount of solar generation in our system. We've got 50 megawatts of battery storage that we're interested in to help really learn at scale the operational capabilities that battery have to offer, which will really provide a firming opportunity for those renewable resources when the wind's not blowing and the sun isn't shining, right? So, and then we've got 500 megawatts of firming capacity, and there's all kinds of technologies out there that can really help shore up that overall capacity to maintain reliability for our customers when the sun's not shining. So that's really the package. It works together as a bundle to deliver, reliable generation resources for our customers. We expect it closes in February, and we're hoping to have some decisions made and contracts in place by the end of July. We've gotten over 150 responses so far of companies that are interested in bidding, and we expect to evaluate over 300 responses at the end of the day. So we've gotten a global response to this effort so far.
Excellent. Okay. Now going to you, Robert, I just wanted to switch over to the customer rate affordability. SAWS has been avoiding a fee increase and did not plan to raise rates in 2021 or not until 2023. Do you think that is still a part of y'all's projections?
Yes, it is. 2021 is, in a couple of weeks, we have not scheduled or asked City Council for a rate increase. Much more likely than not, we will also not be looking for one in the year 2022. And so, hopefully our customers get a little reprieve from the raising of their rates as far as the water is concerned. So I want your membership to appreciate, just like the property that y'all sell is at any given time, your roof, you need a new roof. And that means that you have to make that expense. And in the meantime, your plumbing's getting older, your electrical system is getting older. So eventually you have to replace that also. And maybe you need new siding, and maybe you need some major landscaping. So all those things in our situation, we have over 12,000 miles of underground assets, of pipes. At any given time, the 20-year pipes start becoming 40-year pipes and need to be changed. So it's a constant upgrade of our system as we continue to grow. And so it's just a question of how best to manage it. Luckily, we're in a situation to the two major drivers that were driving up rates over the last few years have been our EPA consent decree, the sewer system, and the acquisition of a game-changing generational water project, Vista Ridge, that's coming in. And so those two are online or getting completed, and the bills to pay that, the rates to pay that, City Council has given us those rates, and that has alleviated some of the pressure on the raising of rates.
Staying with that, Robert, and if we're not raising rates and we still have, we're providing support to people who may be in arrears. One of the questions is, do you think that you're going to have to cut overhead or operationals, or is it going to affect your ability to fix those 40-year pipes in order to support your mission?
We're very happy and proud that we have not had to go through furloughs or layoffs, and we don't see that happening. We do have a healthy, manageable turnover rate. And so when we see that internally, we're very diligent about not replacing those people unless they're absolutely necessary to be replaced. Our hiring officials have to go through a very rigorous process if they want to replace someone. So that part is okay. I think the replacement of our infrastructure, it's numerous projects. So if we get in a situation where we see that there's an ability to stretch one project out from maybe 2 years to 3 years or 4 years, we will do that. And even if it's one of those projects that we've been wanting to do, but it can withstand putting off for another 2 or 3 years, we can do that. We're in a point where we have the flexibility to slow down on some of our capital projects. Even with that, Gilbert, over the next 5 years, we will spend $2 billion on capital projects, $2 billion on assets that probably no one will ever see because they're underground. And you don't want to see them, you don't want to know about them. But that gives you an idea of the capital projects that we have scheduled to do and how much money we spend on just the maintenance and the replacement of infrastructure in our sewer system and water system.
So switch, Rudy, it's kind of the same question. I think the news has said you do expect to go to City Council because of a loss of 19.6 million resulting due to things. I mean, do you think that rates next year for your customers are going to increase?
Well, I mean, that remains to be seen. We will have a conversation with our board and ultimately City Council to discuss the need. We got to put on a case, and our board and council have to agree that the need is there. We have not had a rate increase in over 10 years. We've had one rate increase in 10 years, and it was 6 years ago. And we continue to, we've continued to be able to offset the need for a rate increase by all the cost saving measures that our great employees, 3,100 employees, take on each and every day. Every month, we've got a cost savings item at our board where we're talking about the things we're doing to cut costs. We've suspended our EIP program, which is part of our compensation program, to reflect the fact that we're in this pandemic environment. We're in a hiring freeze. All frivolous spending has been cut. We're not traveling. We're not doing any things that we might be doing during normal circumstances. But, at some point in time, the cost of doing business just grows beyond your capability through your revenue requirements to pay for them. And we're short, it was going to be a really tight year without the pandemic impact. We were looking at about a $3 million net income number for the year, which is tighter than it normally is. Wholesale revenues have not been what they normally are, which helps offset the need for, going to our customers for additional revenues. That was about a third this year, what it has been in the last couple of years. And then we've had the impact of the pandemic. And next year, that impact is probably going to be double what it was this year if our current kind of trajectory continues. So we're at the point where we're going to have this conversation. We don't ever ask for a penny more than we need to provide service to our customers. So we're very mindful of the affordability component of what our customers expect out of us. But we will be having a conversation about the potential need for a rate increase in 2021.
And when was the last time y'all had a rate increase?
2013. I was directly responsible for executing that conversation over at City Council. So I remember distinctly it was 2013 and it went into effect in 2014.
Okay. And back, Robert, to the idea of wanting to keep rates the same. Some things are may also influence that, which is the Edwards Aquifer, and they're wanting to increase some of their fees, given that SAWS is I think controls about 80% of the available rights that they pump. How do you think, what do our members need to know about how that relationship may affect things moving forward?
Well, the Edwards Aquifer Authority is a regulatory agency that has the power over the permits to withdraw water from the aquifer. So they have no authority really over individuals, just the permit holders. So the permit holders are entities like cities, San Antonio, Hondo, New Braunfels, also farmers out in the west, Uvalde, Medina County, quarries, anybody that has an industrial permit for water also. And so right now, SAWS pays $80 per acre foot, and we have a permit for about 230,000 acre feet. So at any given time, they can raise that rate, and they do. And the issue that SAWS has is that we pay 80% of their budget, and I doubt if any one of your members has ever heard of the Edwards Aquifer Authority raising their rates because they go through us. They don't do a whole lot of outreach. They don't have to go through City Council. So it's really something that I would ask your membership to really be aware of. And there's talk about raising. They were going to raise them this year, but for the pandemic. So look for it maybe in next year. And the main reason they're wanting to raise the rates are to create a program that, in my opinion, duplicates exactly what the city of San Antonio is doing, and that's conservation easements. They're saying it's different because they're going to be in a different part of the watershed, a different part of their geographic area, but it's the same program. It's buying property, putting a conservation easement on it so there will be limited development. So the city of San Antonio already has that program. Our ratepayers, our citizens, our taxpayers are already paying for that. They in effect would have to pay twice now through their water bill and through their bills with the city. So if this comes forward, we will make it an issue. We will let them know that this is something that they really need to think twice about because it's solely for that purpose of creating a program that already exists.
And just so our members understand, and I'm making sure I understand, essentially the Edwards Aquifer Authority doesn't have to really ask anyone for permission. They're going to raise their rates, and that is going to automatically affect you. And it's not like it has to go to City of San Antonio, to the community or anything of that nature.
No, correct. Their board, their own board, can vote to raise the rates or not. And I could make a lot of money if I challenged any one of your board members to identify any Edwards Aquifer Authority board member. And they just were on the ballot in November, And oftentimes they take them off the ballot because there's no opposition. And so we tend not to know who they are because there's no controversy because, as I mentioned, their permit holders are very limited and it's only a few entities like cities. And so it's really a question of hopefully they do a whole lot of outreach to justify their need. You know, we have to justify our need. Rudy and his team is going to justify their need these coming few months for their rate increase. You'll see the press, the media really cover that. And hopefully the press, the media really covers the need for them to do that. If it's there, then I'll support them. But if it's not, then we need to be aware of that.
We will definitely keep that front of mind for our members. And Robert, before I go back, I want to switch a little bit to the petition, which is coming down the road, but part of that is just public engagement. Now, SAWS has had a rate advisory committee for a while now. How does that work within your organization?
This is not something that is mandatory. This is just best practices. And we have a rates advisory committee that meets every 5 years and makes suggestions to our board, ultimately adopted by our board and city council, on how to charge for water, not what to charge. They don't set the rates, but they give us information as to industrial rates versus commercial versus residential versus irrigation versus recycled water, all those kinds of issues. And this committee was meeting, had probably half of their agenda done, and then the pandemic hit. It's a very large committee made up of about 20 individuals. When you add staff and the public, it was close to 50. So it really wasn't conducive to continuing to meet. And so it's been suspended. So right now we are in the process of essentially deciding what to do, pick up where they left off. There'll be some members that drop off because their city council member is going to drop off. And so we're reevaluating it to figure out exactly what we're going to do. Another big problem is that in order to figure out what kind of rates to set, you need a base year. And the base year was going to be 2020. Well, I just gave you some numbers to give you an example that that is not a good year to use anymore because of the uniqueness of the pandemic. And that's coming over into 2021 also. The pandemic is not going to go away January 1st, everything back to normal. So it'll bleed into a good portion of 2021. So that may not be a good year to use as a test year, as a base year. So we're going through all that information, going through all that process to eventually get to the point where this rates advisory committee can give us some good information. It goes to our board for approval, ultimately city council for approval.
You know, Rudy, how would you guys just created a rates advisory committee? How are y'all going to utilize that group?
Well, we haven't created it yet.
Oh, okay.
We've been presenting to the board a structure for how we might create a rate advisory committee. We've looked at SAWS rate advisory committee as an example, and there are others out there. Our board's going to vote likely on it at the Monday board meeting, this December board meeting, and then we'll take it from there. You know, the leadership team has always kind of welcomed any amount of public input. You know, originally our environmental stakeholders were pushing the rate advisory committee as a means to be able to provide input on our rate structures and our generation planning activities. Mayor Nuremberg has been a big proponent of it. So we think it could be helpful. We expect that, we would have, assuming the board votes for it favorably on Monday, we'll get to work getting it organized and set up and getting appointees made. But I would expect, any rate discussions next year to probably, at least we'll get going educating a potential rate advisory committee on how you do utility rate making. It's not something that you learn overnight. Robert mentioned you got a base year, you got cost of service study you got to go through. There are a number of things that you have to do to prove your case that it's necessary. But we look forward to figuring out how our rate advisory committee will provide which is advisory in nature. They will provide advice and input to our board, who will ultimately send a case forward to city council for recommendation. So they will be very much advisory in nature.
And Gilbert, if I may,
Sure.
I mentioned that we've been doing this every 5 years for the last 20 years or so, and CPS Energy has not. I don't want it to be thought of that that's not the right thing to do on behalf of CPS Energy. We're both utilities, but we're both very, very different utilities. They deal in a very competitive market with private industry, investor-owned utilities, and it is not necessarily best practices for them to do that. It is on the water side. So their lack of doing it is in no way reflection on their unwillingness to include the public in these kinds of decisions. It's a totally different type of way they charge for their services than what we do.
Well, and I'll say, we've had a Citizens Advisory Council, committee that we've gone to talk to about rates in the past. So we do have a mechanism for public input. There's just been a push for more, and we're always welcome as much public input as we can get.
I was reading before today that both entities are treated a little bit differently. I think CPS, Paula has said she absolutely tries to run it like a business, but she recognizes it is a public utility, and SAWS runs traditionally more like a government, which I think is different. And that has to do, in fact, with the competition, the way the utilities, whereas if I understand correctly, SAWS doesn't have corporate competition providing water, whereas CPS Energy is competing against private entities who are providing electricity. Is that kind of what y'all are saying as far as the two different type of business models?
So we don't necessarily compete on the retail side. We have a service territory that we're the provider in, but we sell excess power that we make into the wholesale, that we generate into the wholesale market, which offsets costs to our customers here locally. So the competition in our industry, we compete on the gas side. Certainly, there are other gas competitors around the peripherals of our service territory that can also provide service that we compete against. But on the electric side, the main part of our competitive nature is in the wholesale market. So just want to make that distinction.
I gotcha. And that, one of the things that I think people are always curious about, and I mentioned it earlier, Robert, was how do we compare our rates compare to say another town like Houston or Corpus Christi? How is our water cost expense per home in comparisons to other communities?
Well, I would say they don't compare. Ours are much, much lower than the ones you mentioned: Corpus Christi, Houston, Dallas. We are the lowest in the state, except for the Dallas Fort Worth Metroplex. And some of the lowest in the nation also. And that is something that I hope the public understands. And the same thing for CPS. We're both publicly owned, both owned by the citizens, owned by the city of San Antonio, and we're able to keep our costs down for a lot of reasons. One of them, for example, is our independence. I don't have to worry about parks. I don't have to worry about the airport. I don't have to worry about police officer and fire union contracts. I can concentrate on those two things that are most fundamental to what we do: water and wastewater. And that allows us to do all the things that we need to do to drive down those costs and keep those costs down. For example, can you imagine any business that takes on a competitor the size of Waco or Corpus Christi overnight, unwilling, I'm talking to Bear Met, without any kind of hiccup? We now have, even though we took a utility on that size, we have the same amount of employees as we did the day before. All of those employees were absorbed. Attrition, retirement has resulted in us doing the same with the running that utility with the same amount of people. So our rates are low. The CPS rates are low, and I think industry recognizes that when EDF, Economic Development Foundation, and our elected leaders try to attract businesses to San Antonio. Power rates and water rates are checked off. They don't have to worry about labor cost, worry about education, worry about our tax system. Power and energy, power and water are taken care of.
So staying with you, Robert, I want to stay on this topic because I think there is a coalition of environmental and social justice groups looking to gather signatures to have a charter amendment petition for the city to vote on in May. They need 20,000 signatures in order to put it on the ballot. And one of those things would be changing the way both utilities are governed. What should our members be informed about with regards to this moving forward?
Well, there's a very active petition drive to get enough signatures to put on the ballot certain measures against CPS Energy and against SAWS. They're very different, very unique. They're both different ways of trying to solve problems, in my opinion, that don't exist. The entities that are trying to do that overlap somewhat, but not entirely. There's a little overlap in them. For us, for example, is something as simple as if we hire lobbyists in Austin, city council, our legislative agenda has to go through city council. As I mentioned before, we're independent from the city. We have unique circumstances, and those kinds of issues are just, if they wanted to do it, city council could do that already, but it's never an issue. Another one, for example, is the auditing of the Vista Ridge project. Well, the Vista Ridge project is unique in the sense that it was a private-public partnership, so they cannot audit a private company. They can do what they want as far as a public utility. We have internal audits, we have external audits, we have oversight from the board, we have oversight by the Public Utilities Office of the city, and oversight by the City of San Antonio Council. So there's enough oversight there, but what they're complaining about, in my opinion, is the Vista Ridge project. They didn't like it from the very beginning, and they're trying to do what they can to derail that project if possible. So it's unfortunately, it's trying to govern through charter amendment, through petition drive, and you'll never get a good response. You'll never get a good running utility if you try to manage them by charter amendments and by petition drives.
So Rudy, the same petition is coming for CPS, or is being used against CPS, and one of it is the inability or not changing fast enough for sustainability. What can you tell our members about y'all's position on the petition drive?
So we run our business by a set of guiding principles that our customers have told us are important to them. Affordability, reliability are the number one and number two most important aspects of how we run our business that our customers have told us are important. There are others: security, safety, environmental responsibility, certainly one of those, resiliency, our ability to recover during catastrophic events. And we do, really pretty reasonably well in all of those categories. And we do all that on a foundation of financial responsibility. So when we're the main issue with I can't opine for or against something that may end up on the ballot as a municipally owned utility. So my comments will be neither for or against this effort. We're merely trying to provide facts. In 2018, we shut down our older Dealey coal units 15 years ahead of schedule. When you do that, you have, it takes a $100 million plus write-off, to deal with the impacts of that. But we did it because our community told us it was important to move in a more sustainable direction. So to say CPS Energy has done nothing, we're number 2 in wind in the state of Texas. We're number 1 in solar. We shut down our coal units early. We're in the process with this new flex power bundle. We'll be able to move to retire some of our older gas units ahead of schedule. And we've, been a party to, the climate action and adaptation plan that the city of San Antonio has been working on that will take us to 80%, carbon neutrality from where we are today by 2050. So we've made these commitments and are factoring that into our business plan. But the pressure is coming from the desire for us to shut down our brand new spruce units by 2030. That's like taking, Paul uses this analogy all the time. That's like taking, a 2-year-old car that you've got a 5-year note on and parking it on the side of the road and walking away from it. That's a potential $1 billion, financial ramification for our customers that we just can't ignore. So, our flexible path strategy really is to try to make a move in the direction the community is asking us to move in thoughtfully, but we've got to factor in all of those 6 pillars equally to ensure we're doing it in a responsible manner.
And one of the other things that the petition is asking for is a restructure of the rates with an inclining scale so that the more electricity you use, the higher the price.
Right.
Is there a reason that would be beneficial?
Well, they're trying to do that to force some policies on energy efficiency. We've got one of the most robust energy efficiency and conservation programs in the nation. We've spent, $800 million over the last decade on energy efficiency and conservation programs. But there's a flawed thinking that that's going to be the end all be all, that more energy you use, the higher income you are, and the less energy you use, the lower income you are, when in fact, a lot of our lowest income customers have the least efficient homes. So you got a lot of low income customers that they're going to get caught up in that game of changing your inclined block rate, rate structures. SAWS has kind of moved in that direction. To a certain degree, they want us to move in that direction as well, but it has implications for low income customers that we can't ignore. But I will tell you that rates are overall structure of our rates is going to be something we take a real close look at going forward to see where it makes sense for our community and more importantly, how our community is using energy, to make good policy decisions is how our rates are structured.
I definitely think of energy inefficient homes are going to have a higher cost on energy bills when it comes to larger homes may be more efficient. I wouldn't be surprised. Now Robert, back to you about the Vista Ridge pipeline. There has been a lot of criticism of it. What would you say is the long-term goal for that project, and when do you think that those benefits will be realized?
Well, those benefits are being realized right now. The project is online. It's delivering water to our community on cold winter days, not like today, but when it's overcast, that water will make its way all the way into almost the southern sector. On a hot summer day, it gets used up a lot in other areas of town. But the unique thing about this project was that you can imagine, again, I'm going to use your industry, Gilbert,
yes,
that you ought to want this to happen, but can you imagine a home never increasing in cost for 30 years? That's the project that we have online right now. The cost of that water will not increase for 30 years. And in year 31, the cost actually drops. It will be cheaper in year 31 for the next 30 years. This is a 60-year water project where we have tied down the rates for 30 years. They drop in year 31 through year 60. The unique thing about this also is that we transferred all of the risk to the private company. They had to worry about the easements, the right-of-way, the permits with different governmental agencies, river authorities. If there's endangered species, they have to worry about it. All the labor cost, all the construction cost, all those issues were transferred to them. The most important transfer of risk was the permit to take water out of the ground where the water's coming from in Burleson County, in Milam County, those two counties. And that is at any time, these officials in that area can say, we don't want as much water coming out of our community and being sent to San Antonio. So they cut the permit, they cut it by 10%, 20%, whatever. Well, the private company still has to pay off the construction cost, the note that they got to build this project. We don't. We just don't pay for that water if they cut the water. So that's the uniqueness of this Vista Ridge project. The opposition is really opposition to growth. They're environmental groups basically, and they just don't believe in the growth of our community. They'd rather have a much more, I guess they wanted growth to stop after they bought their home, or maybe after their children buy their home, or maybe even their grandchildren buy their home. But, obviously I'm being a little facetious and sarcastic there, but that's really where the opposition comes from. But this is a project that has gotten nationwide coverage. I have gone all the way from California to New York to talk about this project. This project has won national awards in our industry, and it's really something that we in San Antonio have finally delivered on, that one project that has been within our grasp, but we've never been able to do, all the way from the initial Canyon Lake that Henry Cisneros, when he was a council member, voted against, to the Applewhite 1 and 2, to all other projects in between that didn't come to fruition. We finally got this one.
So staying with you, Robert, and then Rudy, the petition would change the governance structure management of the utilities for under San Antonio City Council, but your utilities actually provide services to people outside of Bexar County, outside of city. I mean, how would that do for those people who would not be represented, if you will, if this were to happen?
Gilbert, that's a classic example that I said earlier of trying to run the utilities through petition drives, through the box office, the ballot box. We have a service area that goes into 4 other counties. We provide city to a lot of the water to a lot of the municipal cities here. We provide wastewater to a lot of the different municipalities here also. And so it's going to be very difficult for somebody that lives outside to have a say-so in what happens, although they pay their rates. CPS Energy has a much bigger geographic area than what we do, so they're in the same situation. And what's unique about this also is that even though you're an out-of-town ratepayer, the city of San Antonio benefits, because 4% of that revenue from SAWS goes to the city, much higher revenue, 14% from CPS goes to the city. So this is really something that to me is just a quick fix type of thing. They're upset about one thing and they see this as a catch-all kind of solution that they're not appreciating the consequences.
Rudy, same question?
Yeah, I mean, I agree with everything Robert said. We've got 31 suburban cities outside of the city of San Antonio that we provide service to. We touch 7 counties around Bexar County. We've got the way our board is organized. They represent quadrants that look at the entirety of their constituency within that quadrant that they represent. And I think that there's, Robert's right. There's frustration that, maybe they haven't had, certain stakeholders in the community haven't had as much influence into our board making policy decisions as they'd like. A quick fix is, to have the city of San Antonio City Council that's political, that, comes and goes every 2 years, have more influence so you can have, create additional political influence into the energy and water policy that's being made. And that's what's driving, I think, these efforts. What I would say to that is, we work really hard to collect feedback and input from the public in every way possible. We're doing a better job, I think, of messaging to all members of our community about what we're thinking and where we're going and why. We're doing public comment now at our board meetings, and you can look at it online via video. That change was made last year to become more transparent. So, we are very much a business run by the city. Robert's right. We send 14% of our revenues, no questions asked, to the city. $325 to $350 million a year that they can go and put into parks and put into police and fire. The city of San Antonio hasn't had a rate increase in over 30 years because of their ownership of SAWS and CPS Energy, which helps, when you look at the bigger picture. If we were a private entity, that money goes to shareholders and the city's got to figure out another way to raise revenue. So there is a net benefit to the community overall, to the fact that they own us. But, last I checked, I think Eric Walsh, our city manager, has got a lot to on his plate. I think our current governance structure really provides a good balance of, having energy experts and water experts that are focused on doing their job, and let the city focus on, stay focused on doing theirs.
Excellent. I want to be respectful of y'all's time. I know we're supposed to wrap up at 3, so I just have a couple quick questions, and this one's for Saws. There are some people in North Central area who feel their bills are a little bit higher. Is there variables affecting bill variations, and does it depend on what part of town that you live in?
No, the only difference is whether you're in the city limits or outside of the city limits. So North Central, I would have to know from your from whoever asked the question whether they live within the city of San Antonio or outside the city of San Antonio. But those are the only two rate differences: inside city, outside city, geographic. Bearmat used to have geographic zones, but we don't do that.
Okay. Another one for you, Robert, is the Vista Ridge pipeline. Will they still be under the Edwards Aquifer water restrictions if they're receiving, regarding the areas receiving water now from Vista Ridge, will they still be under the Edwards Aquifer water restrictions?
That's a very good question, and it's an issue that we have to address. We can't address it. SAWS cannot address it because it's a City of San Antonio ordinance. Unfortunately, even though we have this big new water project that provides over 20% of our overall inventory, when the Edwards Aquifer level goes below a certain level, the entire region has to go under certain drought restrictions, regardless of whatever. And so it is something that hopefully our council can address, because as far as whether or not we have water for our customers, we have plenty of water for our customers. We just obviously want them to use it responsibly and wisely. And so these restrictions were put in place at a state level and city council level. And this was over 10 years ago, almost 12 years ago. And so they do need updating because of this Vista Ridge project.
Excellent. Well, I really want to thank both of you for joining us for our Public Utilities Town Hall. We look forward to continuing this partner together in San Antonio, and we look forward to supporting y'all on any initiatives y'all would have. We're here to help. So thank you both very much.
Thank you, Gilbert.
Thank you, Gilbert. Appreciate
Have
being
a
here.
great day.